We live in a time frame where people want things now, 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 now. What? No, this is working. This is working for my business. And that's wonderful. I'm glad that that's producing for you. But like, let's stretch and have some other places. Just another great idea for a business. If you're someone who's actively on Twitter, have you ever thought about repurposing that content and also sharing it on these other platforms that you're actively on, or including a screenshot of it in your email?
Hello, I'm Dustin PolyInnovator. Today I'm talking with Hannah Balliet. She is the head of social media at Ugly Mug Marketing. She is a content creator and a growth-focused marketer. Thank you for joining me on the Poly Tools Creator Spotlight.
Thank you so much for having me, Dustin. Excited to be here.
Yeah, I'm excited too. It's gonna be fun. I know that we talked a little bit before I talked with your assistant too about this Opus clip and all these other different tools. I know we can probably get into a lot of that today, but I'm also curious about just your own journey and how you've gotten started with content and social media content, obviously in particular too. So why don't we just kind of start off with that? What got you started as a creator? Where were you coming from?
Yeah. So I started my journey in the nonprofit world. I was primarily working on a lot of relationship building, managing a portfolio of different community members who were hosting annual events in order to support cancer and Parkinson's research. And while that doesn't sound exactly like marketing, I was helping them actually market their events. So helping them with Facebook ads, helping them with social media content, blogging on our organization's website, and also building out content to promote the event on our end as well. So there was definitely some mix of marketing, but I knew that I didn't want to stay in the nonprofit space. I realized that I am very naturally gifted on the relationship side of things, and that's where I really thrived. But I was also really interested in growing more of my skills on the digital marketing side, leaning into some more of those blogs and writing and content creation. And so I did a bit of a pivot and moved into a marketing agency. And when I moved into the agency, I was a team of one. They had just launched their social media department, and I was brought on board to essentially take all of the social media clients at the time, which was really just a handful. But I was assigned to take all of those clients from our founder and the owner of the company, Wayne Mullins. And that felt really intimidating because when clients are going from working with a founder of a company to now this random girl from Michigan, it felt like a little bit of a stretch on that side of things, right? And so I really leaned into doing tons of learning on the Meta platforms, on LinkedIn, dabbled in TikTok a little bit, and some Google ads. And over the course of, that was probably year one. I was like solo team of one, grew and scaled the department, and then ultimately grew and scaled it to have a team of about 3 coordinators that were reporting to me, also an admin that was helping on and off as well. And that was really fun. And now I'm just kind of newly, not even a year into this role, newly stepping into more of this like director of communications and teaching, which is really heavy on me generating content for us as an agency. And so that's kind of how my journey has evolved to content creation, really leaning into social media, short form video, which I'm sure we'll talk about here in just a minute too. Yeah. So that's been a little bit about my journey.
And when you say like you're talking about internally too, creating content for your people that you're working with?
Yes. So I also am charged with creating internal trainings that really meet the needs of our team members and where they're at. So some of that might be video led, some of that might be Zoom calls, it might be in person, but really trying to provide a lot of continuing education for our team members, because we've really learned that those things help retain team members as well. And that's really important to us as an agency. And so that's another part of my role, is doing some of those internal communications while also generating content for our channels as well.
That's awesome. Yeah. There's obviously a big difference between like inbound marketing and doing a lot of paid ads, paid versus organic, the classic debate kind of thing, dichotomy. And ads is not something I have much experience with, so I'm curious to get kind of your thoughts on that. But I also just love content. I love even the social content as well. Is there any particular stuff that you really like to make, what you really enjoy to make?
Yeah, I think whenever I'm able to, for us as an agency, but also for our clients, whenever I'm able to help them see or really connect the dots between their efforts on social media and actual revenue in their business, because ultimately that's why a lot of
Mm.
businesses are showing up there, right? They want that relationship and they want to have that presence on social media, but they only want to invest in it so long as it's having a positive return on investment, return on ad spend, things of that nature, right? And so a lot of my role has been focused around lead generation campaigns, which I really enjoy as a form of content going out. One of our clients is in the home services space. And so they sell generators and HVAC units and plumbing, which I know does not sound like very fun content to put out, right? But it actually has been a huge source of joy and of pride in my role, because we have been able to see such a high return on ad spend over the years. We have been able to build out a lot of marketing integrations that are custom and specific to the systems and processes that they already have in place, which is so important, because with lead generation campaigns, you're essentially putting an offer out there. Let's say a $79 AC tune-up, okay? Half of these locations, or probably about 75% of them, are in the South. And if you know anything about Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, y'all, it's hot right now, okay? It's the summer months. It's hot. So really pushing those offers has always been successful for them and their other marketing channels. But now pushing that out through social, not just posting a regular old organic post, which I like organic content still. There's definitely still a lot of value in organic content, but pushing this out as a paid ad, and specifically as a lead generation ad where we're able to collect that user's information and then using tools like Zapier to automate and send to their CRM, we're able to see, hey, this lead came in from Facebook. Hey, they did buy a new AC unit. Hey, that is $11,000 in revenue for this business now. And when you're only spending $1,000 on ad spend, I mean, when you get an $11,000 lead, I mean, come on.
It's kind of a big little,
That's a bit, like, even if you just get one lead, that's a huge return on ad spend, right? So I think that's been my favorite type of content to generate, not because it's the most sexy or necessarily the most appealing all of the time, but because it's been a form of content that we've been able to directly attribute revenue to.
Quite top of funnel, right?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. And it's interesting too, because you mentioned the ROI, and a lot of business owners, they don't see the ROI because it affects the lifetime value, the LTV. And like, generally speaking, by seeing, like, as a customer point of view, by seeing those ads over and over again, I may not initially make much of a move, but then over time I'll start making more moves. I bought a product recently because I saw the ad 20 or 30 times in a row.
Wow.
And it's like, you're not going to see it right away.
Yeah.
It's that delayed gratification that's hard for a lot of business owners.
Absolutely. We were actually just talking internally as a staff, and I think the statistic, I'm sure there's lots of statistics out there, but one that we've been looking at has been total amount of impressions or time somebody has to see something before they make a buying decision. And that number used to be 7. It's now 11. And that may not seem like that big of a jump. That's only 4 more times. But I mean, from a marketing perspective and looking at things like frequency or total amount of impressions on any given ad that's running for your product or service, that can be massive. And so I just thought that statistic was really interesting around how many times somebody needs to see something before they make that purchase, or maybe even just navigate to a website to learn more information.
Well, and that's definitely more so like getting that one action done. I heard something at one point where it was like they need to see you in 3 different places too, not just the 11 times or 7 times, just like literally just see you at, like, not on just Instagram, but maybe on TikTok too, and then on YouTube, and having a little Google ad, kind of banner ad.
Yeah. And I think that's a really excellent point to bring up too, because so often, especially for people that are entrepreneurs or small business owners, party of one, right? They are trying to be really strategic with how they're spending their time and how they're spending their resources, right? And so I think it's incredibly valuable to not just put all of your eggs into like one basket, like Facebook, or all into Instagram, or all into email, right? We need to diversify a little bit. You don't need to be in all places, right? You really need to hone in on your target audience and figure out where they're spending their time so that you know where you should be spending your time. But let's diversify a little bit in different platforms or different medias so that we can have that higher impact and reach those people in 3 different places so that they're more likely to buy later on too.
And that's definitely an interesting topic. I found that in this series, the PolyTools newsletter that I wrote to start this whole series in the first place, one of the first posts was like, "Don't put all your eggs in one basket." It's something we say a lot of the show. It's one of those things where people still do that. They put all their eggs in one basket. They only do ads on one platform. They only put content on one platform. You need to diversify.
Yeah, absolutely. And I find that so many people are, when they are hung up in those places, when I ask them about their email list or when I ask them about where else they're advertising, they're like, huh? What? No, this is working. This is working for my business. And that's wonderful. I'm glad that that's producing for you. But like, let's stretch and have some other places. For example, we had a cupcake shop and bakery that we were working with, and they had 13,000 followers on their Instagram page and on their Facebook combined. And when we asked them, hey guys, what is your email list looking like? Especially for somebody in your industry, food and beverage, like email marketing can be a really great tool for you. They said, oh, well, we only have like 200. And we were like, guys, tomorrow you could log on to Instagram or you could log on to Facebook or insert any platform. And that page, that method of communication directly to your customers or prospective customers could be gone. With no alert, no heads up, no real true reason. You could submit your claim or what have you to Google or to Facebook or to LinkedIn.
Or the platform itself.
Yeah, or the platform itself could be gone. So how are you going to communicate with those people? And so I think lead generation can be incredibly valuable too, not to totally come back to that, but that can be really valuable too, because we can run a lead generation ad to the folks that just like or follow your Instagram page or like or follow your Facebook page. And we can say, hey, 13,000 people that are hanging out on here that already kind of know us, like us, and trust us, or you're our friend, right? Come on over to our email list. And so we can convert those people to email list subscribers. And then again, another touch point. We now own that information, right? We have that in our MailChimp account. We have that in our CRM, whatever tool we're sending it to. And again, another place to be able to connect with them and to show up so that they will turn into a customer. And we can ultimately increase that lifetime value like you brought up. That's such a great point. And I think that's been so fascinating to me to see, hey, this lead came in. They had never been a customer before. They converted into a paying customer. Not only did they buy a new HVAC unit or did they use this coupon to come and buy cupcakes and coffee at your coffee shop, but now they've come back again and again and again and again. And so these are very qualified leads. These are people who already know you, like you, and trust you, which is incredibly key, right? We want them to trust us enough to come in and shop in our brick and mortar to purchase our product or service. And so over time, again, having these other touch points to continue those conversions, increase that lifetime value, are absolutely paramount to your business.
And I definitely agree with something you said earlier about having, like, don't spread yourself too thin. And it's kind of ironic because my other show is about being a generalist and doing many different things. And the philosophy I have with the PolyTools is being a modern content creator is to go omnichannel. I encourage people to go out and spread themselves a little too thin, but do it right, do it more properly, find the strategies, get good at them first before you go out. Like you kind of said, like, find where your audience is at, stick to that, and then eventually you can either automate it. Like, I don't really do Pinterest, but I have automation set up to send out TikToks out there or something like that, or Instagram pictures out there. So I'm at least on the platform. You can find ways of diversifying and syndicating and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say, what I was going to say is at least like having that diversification, having that portfolio online, it helps you not only keep it from having just one egg in one basket kind of thing, but you could also, like, I was on Vine back in the day. Now it's gone. TikTok is, on the edge of like falling off and being gone. Today, as a time of we're recording, but Microsoft is down for a lot of different companies. And so you just don't know what's going to happen, technology speaking. Like, the companies might go away. Your method of growth is going to go like that.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think I want to come back to what you said about making sure, yes, diversifying, but being strategic about it. Because I remember working with one of my clients. They were probably one of my first clients. They were a window tint. We actually still work with them. They're a window tint, and they do, they'll like lift your truck. They'll add, new wheels and tires and rims, all that fun stuff, right? And I would be like, hey guys, who is your target audience? And they were like, everybody. I mean, come on. We have 16-year-olds who just got the keys to their truck and they're coming up in here and they want to add this, that, or the other to their vehicle. They want a subwoofer. They want new speakers. They want their windows tinted. And then we've got people all the way up to 70 years old. You know, they might be building out a work truck, or they might need side steps under their vehicle, you know, all these different products. And I'm like, okay, that's great. But you guys have limited resources. You may have limited time. You've hired me to handle the social media aspect and potentially some email.
Right.
So let's like really dive in and study for a few weeks who's actually picking up the phone. About how old are the people that are coming into the showroom? You know, like let's really pay attention to that. So we're able to narrow down their audience to about this like 35 to 55-year-old age range. Those are the people that truly have the dispendable income to be able to come back frequently, who have the networks to refer their friends and family to come and spend money there as well. It's a lot easier for us to increase the lifetime value of that customer who falls into that demographic, right? So then we segmented a little further within that age range, and we said, all right, we've got the single guy who has a lifted truck. Let's call him Chase. You know, we named these different avatars, and we said, okay, now within these avatars, where are these particular people hanging out, right? They also do custom work truck builds. So plumbing companies, electrical companies, linemen, building out those trucks, they come from places like this. They don't just come from the dealership. They actually have a lot of dealership partners where the dealership will refer them out. The dealership will bring the truck. They'll do the full custom build, add the toolbox, add the side steps, add emergency lighting, whatever is needed. And then they'll send it back to the dealer, right? So there are these different like buckets. And so we really had to hone in and focus on, okay, where are the dealership people hanging out? What's the best method to market to those folks? What's the best method to reach out to Chase? You know, this single guy who has a truck, you know, they're located very close to a military base. That's a huge audience for them as well. So how do we best reach those folks too? And then they kind of had just this regular Joe just got a new car and needs their windows tinted, right? Like very basic level needs. And so for them, part of their strategy is still being on social. But for the dealership, marketing to the dealership, it's about going in person. It's about having really nice mailers and print materials to be able to bring into a dealer or to mail. It's also about, I would also say with them, like some traditional styles of media too, like billboards and strategically placing those billboards. So it's not
next to the military base.
Yes. And so it's very important to really dive into who your audience is. That's going to tell you a ton about the different marketing tactics that you should be diversifying within. Not just saying, oh my gosh, we need to be on Twitter, we need to be on Pinterest, we need to be, for this client, I would never advise them to be on Pinterest. I'm like, your target audience is not really hanging out on Pinterest. Their spouse, their girlfriend, whatever it might be, but like when they see this, they're not going to go and tell them about it, right? They're not even relative decision maker in this case. And so we were like, okay, yeah, we need to focus on Facebook. We need to focus on Instagram. We need to do maybe a little on TikTok. We need to continue on with our billboards and some of that traditional method for that audience. It allows you to be really intentional when you take the time to dive into those different audiences for your business.
Definitely establishing that persona. And I found that really interesting, Hannah, the way that you explained it, because I kind of came from a different point of view where it's like you have the personas that you need to focus on, but you also have to which services you want to apply. Mm-hmm. Like you said, they have so much they offer. At that point, like you said, you have limited resources. You have to choose which services are most important, which ones are going to have the most ROI when it comes to which ones you actually market. And I had someone come on my other show, the Polymath podcast, where he was talking about two different plumbers. One plumber specializes just in sinks in the kitchen or something like that, fixing leaks. The other plumber can do anything when it comes to related to plumbing, maybe even a little bit of electricity, wiring, stuff like too. And the way they were marketing was different. And so the one marketer's like, if you have this one problem, I can specifically help you with that. Boom, I'm the best in town for that. The other plumber might even be better than that guy or that person at doing that job, but the way they were marketing was like, I can do any kind of plumbing. I can fix your toilet, your sink, and everything like that. They were too wide in the way they were actually targeting the marketing. And so if you're the customer, you're probably going to pick that first person. And by separating what that jack of all trades can do into 3 different marketing segments, 3 different funnels, they would be a lot more successful. So one point is like if you are being really wide, like that company you were talking about, just having multiple funnels and then establishing those personas for each funnels, like you were saying, they could really be a lot more powerful.
Yeah.
2x fold.
Yeah. And you even kind of want to start to look at the competition a little bit. Now, for their market, there's not really a lot of competition in the work truck builds. And that is a huge revenue generator. And if they would lean into that more, their business would be completely different. Now, if we were just leaning on kind of the Joe Schmo who just got a new car and needs their windows tinted, that's an incredibly competitive market. We're not only going against other companies who are at their size and level, but we're also competing with the little guys at that stage as well, right? We're competing with people who come to your house and tint your windows, or some high school kid who just graduated and is starting a business and pursuing entrepreneurship, and he's doing this and hustling, right? We might be competing with some different ranges of price points as well, like people who are going to like undercut you. And if this person has never been a customer with you, they're probably going to go with the cheaper people, right? Like they don't see the value in that because they don't already have that pre-standing relationship. Whereas the dealer or the person who ended up buying the work truck, I bet you if they need their windows tinted, they're probably going to come to you because the relationship has already been established. They're not worried about
the point of
they're not worried about price point and getting the cheapest deal. And so I really always encourage them to lean more into the work trucks and into that single guy who's looking really to rev up his truck, because the market for just regular old glass window tinting, like that market is so saturated. And I don't think that it's not worth it to continue to market that service. I just think when we're looking at allocating ad spend and our efforts and energies, I think it's better spent in those other 2 categories.
And to kind of bring it back to the content creator world, as a creator, your content is a business. You have to understand that. And you and I are nerding out about all this business aspects and establishing your persona and all that jazz. But this is something you have to do as a content creator. Who is the persona that you are creating content for? Who is the competition in your space? I find that a lot of content creators are more collaborative than competitive, but there is this idea that like, hey, they're making the same content as you or similar content. Are they really a competitor? Are they collaborative? Like, it's kind of like the 2 coffee shops in the same block. Generally speaking, you're both just going to win because everyone's going to come to that block for coffee, regardless of which store they go to. So it's just really interesting to think about as a content creator.
Yeah,
too.
Absolutely. And I think once you have those personas, I know we've kind of been nerding out on that, you're able to generate better content to really speak to that person and to really understand what they care about or what they value. So a type of content that we're constantly generating for that particular client, not to keep running with them, but is, hey, do we have pictures of recent work truck builds? Or do we have pictures of a person from a particular company that we know is really well known in the community that we can take a picture of them with their entire fleet of work trucks? Or do we have a person from the military base who's in uniform that, just came and picked up their new, whatever truck, Ford F-150, all tricked out and everything now, that we can take their picture? Because that type of content, when we have another person's face, when there's that aspect of social proof, and when people as viewers and users on these platforms see someone else that quote unquote looks like them, they're much more likely to buy. And so being really intentional with the kind of content that you're putting out there, and knowing too, like, is video working better with this audience, or is it the still image, or is it something that's just written? Where are these people actually showing up? What are they actually digesting? What version of this ad are they actually resonating with and is causing them to come to our website or click the call now button or fill out the get a free quote form that we are running as a lead generation campaign? We do a lot of split testing, even with just that. We'll keep the copy the same. We'll keep the call to action, everything. But the only thing we'll switch out is the form of content. Are we using a picture? Are we using a video? Or is this something that's purely written content? And we're just driving traffic to all the same place, whether it be their website or that lead gen form. I think that's really fascinating to do. And you're only going to learn that about your audience if you split test.
And I love how like YouTube is now getting a little bit more A/B testing, and on top of that too, there's a lot more opportunities to do that between platforms. Even just like syndicating your TikToks to Reels and Shorts as well, and kind of A/B testing which platform responds to which kind of content is really interesting too.
Yeah, definitely. I utilize Opus Clip.
Yeah.
So I utilize Opus Clip a ton for us as an agency, just for ourselves, not even really for a lot of our clients at this time, but we host a weekly live coffee chat with current clients, with people on our team, with friends of ours as well, other agencies. And on that show, we have so much great content, right? But so few people have time to really sit down, at least within our target audience, true entrepreneurs who have their 9 to 5 and then have their 5 to 9 too, right? And so we want to have bite-sized forms of content. And so we will use tools like Opus Clip. Go in there, type in some keywords from that conversation, points that we want to make sure that we hit on, that we know resonate with that audience around that particular topic.
Right.
And then we'll go and post that on Instagram. But I'll also take that content, make sure it posts on our Facebook Reels. I'll also make sure that that posts on YouTube Shorts. I'll also maybe take it and also post it on LinkedIn as well, depending on what the topic was. And that's incredibly powerful. So often we let our content just live once and die. And when we actually take it and repurpose it or post it on other platforms, the longevity of that content, it lasts so much longer. So often we just post one day and boom, it's gone, right? And then you feel like you can't ever post it again. And I'm like, but you can. You can post it again, and you can post it on other platforms. People's attention spans are wildly short. I think you have like 3 to 8 seconds to like even just capture someone's attention. And so if you posted about a new arrival or something, let's say you're a boutique, a new pair of shoes that you just got in, or a new shirt or new dress, and it's still on your shelves or on your floor a month, 2 months later, post it again. Somebody maybe saw it and they forgot about it, or post it on your blog and then share a link with ways to style that particular, dress or piece of clothing or shoes or whatever. There's so many different ways that we can be creative with our content and post it across all of these various channels that we're showing up on.
Shout out to Opus Clip. As a brand partner, I love them. I even worked with them for a while too. And it was interesting to think about how a lot of content that I make with these interviews, for example, are pretty evergreen. Even my other interviews, especially when I was first getting into Opus. And it was one of those things where I failed to market those shows because I knew about all the other repurposing tools on the market, literally all of them. But the thing is, in order to get the job done, it would take 12 different steps and oftentimes 2 different tools just to even get the vertical format of like you on top and me in the bottom for TikTok.
Yeah.
Because Opus was the first tool to let you do that stacked view. And I found myself, like, as a solo creator, like, I just did not have the bandwidth to do all that, even with these other tools. Opus came out. I was able to repurpose all, at the time, 120, 130 interviews I had. Now it's closer to 160, 170. And between the 2 shows, I got like 1,600 usable clips from all of that. And then being able to post them out, I wanted to share this with you, Hannah. There's actually really not very many tools that make it easy to schedule them out. Opus at least now has a scheduler, which is really great. Yeah. But if you have a whole backlog, you might want to do it in bulk. Well, a lot of the tools, social media marketing tools, they only let you do bulk in CSV. Now, I don't want to go too much on a tangent because I'll definitely nerd out on this too much. But I was livid because I looked at every single social media management tool on the market, and none of them could do bulk except for a couple. Publer was one of the only ones that could really do like a close to bulk, but it was still very tedious, a lot of different steps for every single post, and it kept breaking on me, and I would lose all my work that I would spend the last 30 minutes to an hour on to do. I actually started working with a tool called Repurposed, which you kind of mentioned something earlier I wanted to get into, the idea of recurring your post, redoing your post, if you will. And that's what this tool does, but they actually built a bulk upload function for like TikToks and Shorts and Reels, which is really interesting to make it easier to bulk import all of that instead of using a CSV. And I just wanted to touch, before we get into the questions here, I wanted to touch on the idea you shared because I love it. Not enough people talk about it, is bringing back that old posts. Mm-hmm. Now, you may not always redo the same clips or something like that, but let's say you have a really awesome quote or post that you put on Facebook and you want to redo it later on. Or like you have a clip that's really amazing from this call, for example, and I want to share it over time. I had a strategy in mind, and I don't know how I can really make it happen without doing it manually, but you post it the day of, right? And then the next day you post it the opposite time of day. So if you posted in the morning the day before, you posted in the evening the next day, so you can get your other half of the audience. Then a week later, then a month later, then 6 months later, then a year later. So you can maximize the reach of that post by getting the best times. Because like you said before, they may not have seen it before too.
Yeah, yeah. Another thing that I'll do with our content too is if I'm writing an email that has to do with any upcoming events, I'll take that email and I'll use that, bits of it, maybe not verbatim, but I'll take bits of that and I'll utilize that in a Facebook post as well. Or I'll utilize the imagery or the video, and maybe I'll post it. Maybe it's really good and it's something about our office and our culture, and I'll also post that on our Google business profile. It doesn't just have to exist in the one medium or way that you're sharing it.
Yeah.
And that if it's a social media post, could this also be a really great email to touch people that are also hanging out there? Just because people follow you on all of these platforms does not mean that they see it, right? And so again, speaking to our, hey, somebody's got to see it 3 times, or they've got to see something from you 3 times. Well, maybe I posted on Facebook, I posted on YouTube, and I posted on Instagram, but maybe I take the copy from the caption and I also utilize that in an email and then link back to our social media from that to actually watch the video or something like that. There's guys and another thing too, kind of along these same lines, is my clients will take pictures and they'll want to post it like that day. Or they'll take like 30 pictures of new things that came in this week in their boutique.
Spread it out.
And I'm like, guys, nobody knows if you took this picture today, last week, 3 hours ago, 5 minutes ago. Like, nobody knows. Spread that content out. I've been on the side, just like, my friend was like, can you help me with social media? I'm like, are you taking pictures of your work? He's a farrier, okay? He does horse hooves. He goes to farms. He cleans horse hooves. He puts new horseshoes on, that whole kit and caboodle. And so we kind of talked about who his current clients are, and we determined that Facebook was probably and Instagram are going to be the best spaces for him to be spending his time. And so my whole challenge to him over the last 6 weeks has been to just take pictures. I'm like, do not post this. Do not write a caption. I want you to get in the habit of simply just documenting your day and being okay with it not going out that same day. Because that's what was happening. He would go to a job. He would, take a selfie with a horse, which is so funny. Okay. I'm like, that's what we want to see. We want to see the before and after, the transformation of the horse hoof, but we also want to see a selfie with the horse. Okay. And so just getting him in those rhythms and those habits of documenting and capturing the content. I think Gary Vee was probably one of the first people to really talk about this idea of, guys, we're overthinking content creation. It's literally just about documenting what you're doing. And I think that is so true for small businesses in particular, for large corporations too, but for small businesses especially. I'm like, Alex, we want to know what farm you're going to. We want to know what kind of horses you're working with. We want to know. And I'm like, and rather than you just linking to a type of horse on a Wikipedia page or to a certain farm, right? I'm like, I want to see pictures. That's really what people who are in your target audience, that's what they want to see. They want to see that transformation and that before and after. And you're only going to get that type of content by actually doing the work of capturing your day-to-day.
You got to capture it. And going back to the horse hoof, you mentioned Facebook and Instagram being the best posts. I've seen a ton of videos of someone cleaning horse or cow hooves. They have a pus sack or something like that in the hoof because they stepped on a nail or something like that. And it's surprisingly entertaining where I'll be sitting there watching them clean this hoof and it's just cutting it out and applying the bandage onto it and stuff like that. And so it's amazing how even on TikTok, it's really interesting. I wanted to touch on something you said a little while ago, Hannah, about the idea of taking it from the email or say a blog post. I actually had this kind of idea where I would have a certain section of the blog post that would be made to kind of be tweetable. And so I would tweet it out. Then you could syndicate it to Threads, for example, too, or even the blockchain alternatives like Mastodon or whatever. Yeah. So you syndicate it. You take that tweet, you use TweetPic or Banner Bear and turn it into an image. You can then post it to Instagram and Pinterest. Then you could also take that same tweet, use Flicky or InVideo or some other tool like that to turn it into a TikTok video and post it to Shorts, Reels, and TikTok. And so it's amazing how that one little paragraph or quote from an email or blog post can then be 8 posts after.
Yeah. And it's so funny that a simple, essentially a screenshot of a tweet can be the thing that takes off on Instagram or on Facebook. I mean, come on, guys. How often do we see a funny screenshot that's of a tweet And then we're tagging our friends in the comments, or we're sending it as a private message, or we're putting it on our story. Like, that type of content works. And so why would you not be doing that as your business? So often I ask my clients, what makes you stop when you're scrolling on Instagram? Sometimes they are their own target audience, right? So I'm like, what are you watching on TikTok? What's making you stop when you're mindlessly scrolling on Facebook or when you're on YouTube? And I try to essentially get them to give themselves the own answer by sharing what they're watching and what they're consuming on a day-to-day, because maybe we need to be working on producing that type of content. And I feel like, for me personally, I'm like, when I see those little screenshots of like a tweet and it's something funny or just relatable, I'm a mom, so anytime I see something funny about parenting or something crazy insane that someone's toddler did, I'm like, oh my gosh. In my mind, I'm like, retweet, same, not just me, but also share to my story, or tag another mom or a friend, like in the comments section. So yeah, that can be a really, really just another great idea for a business. If you're someone who's actively on Twitter, have you ever thought about repurposing that content and also sharing it on these other platforms that you're actively on, or including a screenshot of it in your email? Gosh, such an easy way to repurpose content.
I found that also Threads allows you to share the story really easily too, which is kind of nice. Make it a little bit easier for you. I had a guest in the show, Ryan McGinn. He's like behind one of the most successful short form video agencies. And it was one of those things where he was talking about when he's on TikTok and he's scrolling through, his mindset is like, what are the most viral videos? Like, I want to find viral. That's what he does. He focuses purely on the virality. And he told me on the show, like, the videos that get him to stop and watch, he'll look at the views, and it's like 1 million views. They're like viral videos. It's always the ones that are viral that he kind of locks in on. And once you get kind of that skill of looking like, what do you want to create? Doesn't have to be viral. Could just be more interesting or engaging or entertaining or whatever. But like finding the kind of content that you are identifying with, and then bookmark those and then watch them later and see how you can reproduce them in your own way, that kind of thing.
Yeah, definitely. That's so interesting that he noticed that the things that he was stopping and scrolling on are things that are already trending or that are already viral. There's definitely an element of social proof. Oh my gosh, 1 million other people, 10 million other people already watched this, and the content is relevant to me. I think, gosh, that only increases views over time. You know, a friend of a friend, she's a content creator. She's a social media manager within the wedding industry, essentially for people who work within the wedding industry. And over this past year, she got married herself and she created a lot of content around that. And I was just perusing her Instagram page the other day, and she had 10 million views on one of her reels about her own wedding. And then, you know, multiple thousands on her TikTok, the same exact content, the same exact video and everything, just published in another place. And I was just thinking, wow, that is so fascinating to me, that I wonder if she knew that particular reel or that piece of content. But what I also thought was interesting was the ones that have gone off the charts for her, so to speak, have been the ones not about her client, not about her services, not about anything that has to do with her business, but have been personally about her and about her wedding and what she did, and how other brides can then take that and implement that in their own weddings. It's adjacent to her business, right? But it is not her actual business. And so I just thought that was really, really interesting. I was like, wow. I was like, look at you go, girl. I was like, I love that. That's so relevant. And that's the type of content that's going to show up for brides and other people within the wedding industry. People are going to see that and they're really going to take notice.
It made me think about the whole syndication again. Like you said, going to Instagram and TikTok, posting the same video, and how does it perform differently? And I posted like I told you earlier, I made the 600 clips using Opus, and I would post all of them to TikTok, Shorts, and Reels, and eventually added Pinterest, because Pinterest actually gave me more impressions than all 3 other ones combined, just from posting, just syndicating there, which is crazy. And then Instagram actually has done pretty poorly for the most part in my experience, but I think it's more particular in my profile and my style of content, not so much the platform, but it could be. TikTok's done pretty well, but YouTube was doing really well. Like, just on my main channel, I had 24,000 views, and I'm a small channel. That's a pretty big jump. 90% of those views, 92% of the views were all from shorts. And so it's kind of interesting to think about how like the same video does differently between all these different platforms, despite the fact it's the same kind of platform.
Yeah. And it could even be that the same audience is hanging out on all of those platforms, right? Gosh, yeah, really
But their
fascinating.
mindset's different.
Yeah, the mindset is totally different. I was also watching something too recently. I think they were speaking more towards paid, but that paid ads, especially if we're running a reel as an ad or we're running it on Facebook versus maybe something just showing up organically, like the idea of like this is a disruptor in the midst of someone's day versus they're actually like going out and searching for this kind of content. I just thought that was really interesting too, because are things showing up and appearing more organically on TikTok versus on any of the meta platforms, or even versus how they're showing up on Pinterest or other places? I just thought that idea was really interesting too. Are people engaging with it more as it's organically or appears to organically be showing up, or engaging with it more as a form of paid media? I don't know. I'm sure there's a lot of statistics and data around that, especially around short form video, but would be curious on that.
Paid versus organic. I'm curious too. Maybe we could talk about it maybe again next time if we have any more information. Getting to this next question here, because this is Poly tools, right? Like the Polymath toolkit kind of thing. What tools do we use? We've name dropped a handful of them already, but what tools do you use for content creation and repurposing?
Yeah, one tool that I utilize a lot for content creation is ChatGPT, but there's a caveat to this, right? A lot of people will just copy and paste exactly what ChatGPT spits out as far as a written post or content. And that is not the way that we should be utilizing ChatGPT, right? We can utilize it to generate new prompts. We can utilize it to write some aspects of the copy, but then tweaking it to make sure that it really matches our brand's voice or our goals or whatever it may be, right? For example, I mentioned I have a client in the heating, cooling, plumbing, electrical business, right? I am not a master electrician. I am not a lead HVAC installer. I am not a journeyman plumber or master plumber, right? So I lean on tools like this to quickly be able to educate myself and to successfully write content in a way that I know is going to really resonate with a homeowner. And so I utilize tools like ChatGPT to help me kind of generate new ideas or new questions that somebody as a homeowner might have, because oh my gosh, these are questions that I have too. Come on now, right? So sometimes I even just have to think about it from that perspective. As a homeowner, do I even know what that means? Do I know what benefit a generator could really have to my home value? And so I might just be searching for some bullet point lists on what I could incorporate in my post, but ultimately I am still the one writing the majority of the message, right? And tweaking it to make sure that it adheres to my client's brand guidelines, because ChatGPT is not going to do that. There was recently a study that essentially like tested people and said, okay, who wrote this post? Like, was it ChatGPT or was it a human? And I don't even remember what the percentage was, but it was like well over 50% of people could notice and tell when ChatGPT wrote it versus when a human wrote it. And that's not really a knock on ChatGPT. Again, I utilize it as a content creator and as a marketer. I think it's a wonderful tool, but I think we need to be utilizing it wisely when it comes to generating content, for sure.
I just wanted to touch on that before we get into more tools, because I think, like you said, you got to be careful with it. You got to be wise, because ChatGPT can hallucinate. And I've been talking to people about it on both shows. And especially when it comes to like asking questions to learn, like it's a great tool for it, but you got to be careful. Like sometimes it might be out of date or something like that if it's very time sensitive information. I've heard that Claude has been doing a lot better recently at the time of this recording kind of thing, and Perplexity AI takes from information from a lot of different ones, and it could be a lot more accurate. So I just wanted to mention that for you or anyone listening, just in case, because like you said, using these tools could be amazing, super helpful. I actually got kind of in trouble recently because I used I think titles are really great with ChatGPT. I'll give it a summary of what a thing is about, make a title from it, but I've realized it's only about 85-90% good at like making that title. So like you said, you have to add your own tweak to it. I remember posting a video late at night and I used that to make a title, and it said something wrong in it, but it was like midnight when I posted it, so I didn't think clearly about it, and then I got in trouble for that title because it said something kind of off. And it was like, I should have tweaked that last 10% and it would have been fine. It would have been great, actually, even. Yeah. But you got to be careful, like you said.
Yes. Definitely do your fact checking, especially if it's content around a topic or something that you aren't that familiar with. I mean, you definitely want to fact check. If you have someone on your team who is an expert and can kind of proof it and look it over, not even proof it for grammatical, but like proof it in that, like, is this actually accurate? That's such an excellent point. So good to know that there's other tools like Claude. And what was the other one that you mentioned? mentioned, that have more
Perplexity
AI. Okay. Yeah, that have a little bit more accuracy behind them than maybe ChatGPT has.
What were the other tools, Hannah? I don't want to cut you off there because I'm curious. I want to make sure we get to those other tools.
The other one I was just going to mention is Zapier. Zapier is a great way to kind of automate some of those systems and processes within your business. And I feel like I don't necessarily use it so much for content creation, but more so just for processes and seamlessly, taking data from one place and sending it to another. So I mentioned those lead generation campaigns earlier as a form of content to put out there for paid media. And that's one way where we automate and we take that lead from Facebook and we automatically spit it into MailChimp, and then a MailChimp sequence starts, right? So that we can quickly create a customer out of it, hopefully, but create a really seamless communication process for our team, but also for the user. We live in a time frame where people want things now. I live next to like 11 Amazon distribution centers here in Raleigh, North Carolina. I can get same day shipping. So when I see something is 2 day, seems too long to me. 2 days too long. I'm like looking for the product sometimes. I'm not even looking at price point anymore. I'm looking at what's going to get here today between 7 and 11 p.m., right? Because I need this thing now. And so being able to create that journey for a customer just in the same way that we as users for other products and services want things now, the same to the people who are purchasing from us, right? Or the same to, in my example, as an agent working in an agency setting, as my clients' customers want things. They want them now. And so Zapier really allows us to automate some of those systems and processes, allows us to trigger and start those email marketing campaigns, allows us to dump into places like Hatch, which is specific to home services, but is essentially a texting service. Sometimes people don't like to talk on the phone, right? So, okay, let's add this texting option where they can schedule and book an appointment that way. We want to make things as easy as possible, eliminating friction from our sales cycle, from our sales process and funnel. And Zapier allows us to do that. It's a wonderful tool. It's $20 a month for like one of the most basic versions to be able to do some of the automations that I just mentioned here today, but a great tool that I regularly utilize as well.
I totally agree. I've actually had a lot of experience with Zapier. The $20 though is sometimes a little expensive for a lot of solo creators, especially since they only gave you like 5 zaps, I think, for that cost. Yeah. There are some alternatives like Make. I'll also leave a link in the description because on the automations category on the PolyTools website, there's a lot of alternatives too. So what I often suggest people do is like take a combination too. Yeah. So like, hey, even if you're paying for a couple of them or not paying for all, if they use a free plan or whatever, use the free plan for 3 different tools, and then you can get like 9 different automations. It's just helpful. But the point is, let's say you have members on your website or a cart, e-commerce on your website, and you want to link it to your CRM, link it to your email marketing database. Use Zapier to create that connection. Like
yeah, for sure.
What have you learned from doing over 4,000 social media marketing campaigns?
Oh, I've learned a lot.
That's a loaded question.
Yeah, it is a loaded question. I think sometimes paid media can have, especially for small business owners or solo creators, can give us a little bit of magic bullet mentality, right? We think if we post this one thing or this one version of this ad, this is going to be the thing that goes viral or generates a bunch of leads or generates a bunch of business for our company. And it's just simply not true. We do have to do the work of split testing, of really deeply understanding and knowing our target audience and who's consuming our content to better understand what type of content. So especially when you're in this industry, you have to be willing to fail, right? We've had reels that just have gotten a few hundred views. We've had reels that have gotten, 40,000 views. We've had, everything in between. And so really going back and looking at some of those failures and maybe laughing at yourself a little bit if that wasn't quite the messaging or quite the content, right, that resonated with your audience, but also really studying the successes that you've had as well can really help you generate more content or kind of replicate or duplicate that, or can give you the idea to go back and repurpose some of that content as well, right? I've also learned that across different markets, even if you've been successful with one particular offer, one particular type of content or campaign, that's not necessarily what's going to resonate in every market. If we're running something in a more metropolitan area on a particular platform, or we've posted a piece of content there and it's really generating a lot of views or a lot of traffic to the website, but then we did the same thing in another market, sometimes that doesn't always resonate. Sometimes rural markets are a few years behind where the more metropolitan cities are, right? Sometimes LinkedIn hasn't quite caught on yet. Sometimes TikTok is still growing, but isn't quite really where it is in a Detroit or a Chicago or a Raleigh or a LA even, sometimes it's just a little bit more behind the times, and that's okay, but we need to really deeply understand those markets in order to make better decisions as well. So that's definitely been another thing that I've learned. Don't assume that the first thing that you try is what's going to work, and also take into consideration that the market just simply may be different. It may be the same product service. You may be trying to reach the same type of person within that more rural geographic location rather than a metropolitan area, but you have to be willing to tweak a little bit, and you have to have a willingness to pivot, certainly in content creation, because just the first thing isn't always going to stick.
It goes back to what you're kind of saying earlier, having that social understanding and sometimes doing things in person. And again, it kind of comes back to, like you also said, like the timing of it. It could be the platform, the timing of the platform, timing of where that person lives. Like you said, certain countries around the world might be a little bit behind when it comes to internet, like just the kind of level, like where they're at. Are they Web 2, Web 3 kind of level? And just understanding the person, that kind of thing. So what do you have coming on the line that you're looking most forward to?
Ooh, that's a really great question. We have a client that has grown and scaled with us quite a bit. They are increasing their ad spend significantly. I mean, for each location, we were spending anywhere from $1,000 to maybe $1,500. We're now scaling to $10,000 per location per month, which is awesome. So I'm really looking forward to that because it's going to allow us more opportunity. Essentially, we were within the budget. We were trying to maximize that budget in that we were only running certain types of campaigns. We were trying to get the most bang for our buck, so to speak. And now that we have this expanded budget, it really allows us to focus on some different offers for them, but it also allows us to run some additional paid media that we weren't necessarily before. So running some traffic campaigns and then retargeting folks with some video and taking even their television ads that they've been running for some of these brands and running those as video ads on paid media as well is huge. Again, adding that additional touch point for these homeowners. We're also going to be running just some general brand awareness. We all know that the more people we have at the top of the funnel, the more conversions ultimately we're going to get over time, but you just got to get more of those people. You got to get more people to know you, right? We always talk about this idea of the natural progression at Ugly Mug Marketing, this idea of taking someone from a stranger to a friend to a customer and ultimately to an evangelist. And an evangelist is someone who's had such a remarkable experience with your product, your service, your business in general, and they're willing to go out and tell their neighbor or their family or their friends to refer your business to other people within their network, right? And so often we think that the customer journey just stops once they become a paying customer, and it's so much more than that. And so I'm really excited to kind of lean into that like evangelizing side with them too, running some things to people who are strictly just liking and following their page, or some people who have specifically filled out one of our lead generation forms, like getting really, really niche in some of their marketing so that over time we can increase the lifetime value of the leads that we are producing that are converting into customers as well. So I am just really looking forward to further diving into some paid media, leaning into some different types of organic content for them as well, and working with their team to produce more short form video because the posts, they're great. They can be great. But I think ultimately, especially if you're someone who is in the service industry, the more that you can make people feel like they already know the people on your team, the wait staff in your restaurant, the technician who's going to be coming into their home and fixing their house. I mean, I just think that is incredibly powerful. And we want to make people feel like they already know us, like us, that we're already their friend before we ever step foot into their home or before they ever step foot into our business. And I think there's a lot of opportunity within short form video, within various industries for us to kind of create that feeling and further build out that relationship utilizing our team members. And so I'm excited to challenge some of those team members within this particular client, but for all of our clients in creating that short form video as well.
It kind of definitely makes me think of Duolingo when it comes to like knowing the staff and seeing like how much they put their staff into it. And I've seen a lot of TikToks like that where they're like having the bartender say something to the camera, something like that too. But definitely great point. Kind of a circular ending there too, because a lot of the same topics you talked about at the beginning are very similar to that as well. So it's good that you're in that space you're so passionate about. Hannah, where can people find you online?
Yeah, so you can personally connect with me on LinkedIn at Hannah Balliet. On LinkedIn, you can connect with us at Ugly Mug Marketing. We're on all social, well, not all social media, but we're on a lot of social media, right? We're hanging out on LinkedIn, we're hanging out on Instagram and on Facebook at this time, and on TikTok. You can find us just at regular old Ugly Mug Marketing. And you can also visit our website to uglymugmarketing.com and get connected with us that way too.
I got links for you and Ugly Mug down below. This was Dustin Miller, PolyInnovator, and Hannah Balliet on the PolyTools Creator Spotlight. Thank you for being here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. This was a lot of fun.
It was. I love learning out about it.